ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. So we were supposed to start from this limitations of the jiva. So who would like to read first?
Can I start?
Please go ahead.
The limitations of the jiva. Wherever the jiva is, power wielded by that jiva is limited. Even Indra's wings are clipped. He does not have total overlordship because there are other domains where he is not even given entry. He may say, I am Indra, and still be told to leave. Someone might say, you might be Indra in your own loka, but here you do not even have the status of a mosquito. Please go. Thus, you find that no one's wingspan enables him or her to go everywhere. Such freedom and limitlessness in terms of knowledge and power is not there for anyone. Your knowledge and power are both limited. For want of knowledge, you cannot avoid what you want to avoid. Knowledge is not limitless. If it were, there would be no problem. Exactly what you want to happen would happen. You would know that this action would produce that result. Limitless knowledge means limitless power too. If you have limitless power, you do not need to do anything other than think a thought. The thought you have will shape itself perfectly. God did not commit a mistake when he thought that an avocado would be the fruit that has a big pit. It was meant to be that way. It would not be an avocado if it did not have a big pit. An apple, on the other hand, should not have a big pit. Only then is it an apple. This is how the creation is. When there is omniscience, the thoughts are clean and complete. Nothing needs to be done. Thus, God did not need 6 days to create the world. It is not that on the first day God did this, and on the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth days he did a few other things. Or that having created everything else, he found there was no light and had to put a sun up there. How could he have done the other things with no light? How could there be a first day without a sun? A day is due to the sun alone. Nor is it that God was doing a job that required him to do things on the first day so that he could paint on the next. On the third day, he did not look at what he had done before and decide that it was unsatisfactory and rearrange the whole thing. God is not an architect. If the Lord is omniscient and omnipotent, what is required is just a sankalpa thought. Even we, as mere mortals, do better in our dreams. We think of a world and it is there in front of us. If we think of a mountain, the mountain is up. If we think of a lion on the mountain, the lion is there. If we think of an African jungle, it is there. We need not do anything, nor do we have to go anywhere. It's all there. We created it. And if we want everyone to come and see our creation, they come in droves in every imaginable means of transport because we have the capacity to create them all in an instant. A capacity similar to this in the Lord, of course, is what is meant by omnipotence. That is why he is called Satya Sankalpa, one whose Sankalpa, thought, is Satya, true. When the thought is there, the whole thing is there. This is omnipotence. Hari Om.
Awesome. So we'll probably read one more topic and then we'll pause for a second to discuss. Anybody else want to do the next topic?
I can read it. Sri.
Please go ahead.
The results of karma can never be predicted. However, for you, power and knowledge being limited, certain situations cannot be avoided. For want of power, you cannot avoid illnesses or accidents, like falling from a tree. You know that you're falling, and you may even know that you're accelerating downward at a speed of 32 feet per second. You know very well, but so what? Down you come. It matters not whether one is great physicist or an ignoramus who has no understanding of gravitation at all. All that is known is that he or she is coming down. But for want of power, neither of them can avoid falling. Limitation with respect to power and knowledge, then, is the status of an individual. If this is so, Krishna's statement that your choice is only over action, uh, karmani eva adhikarasya, adhikaraste, is very important. You may say that there is really no choice because so much is determined by your past and so on, but it is an endless debate. The point is that you do have a choice. To understand that much is enough. You can perform a given action, you need not do it, or you can do it differently. This is a capacity you have. Therefore, you do have choice, which is why you do not do certain things and you can force yourself to do other things, even though you do not feel like doing them, or you can do them differently. So, as a human being, you have adhikara, choice, but you have no choice whatsoever over the results of the action. Once you perform karma, the result is taken care of. What choice do you have? If you had a choice over the result, you need not have done the karma at all. If you had any power over the result, you would always be successful. Because you are not omniscient, you do not know that a karma will produce a particular result. No one knows the ways of karma. To know how karma is going to produce its result and what result it is going to produce is very difficult to figure out. This is because your own past karmas may be inhibiting the result of present karma. Thus, all we know is good and bad luck. Sometimes you find yourself in the right place at the right time, and at other times, you are in the right place but not at the right time. In order to get the desired result, you have to be at the right place at the right time, but you do not always know which is the right time and the place. You can only keep trying. It means that there seems to be an element called luck involved here, but you do not call it luck. Instead, you refer to it as previous karma. If the cause effect relationship is understood, there is no question of luck. It is simply replaced by past karma. Being at the right place at the right time is karma, and being at the wrong place is also karma. Therefore, you really do not know. You can only go by your choice, your free will.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm thinking we'll probably do free will as well. There are two components to this, right? And we'll do this topic as well. Would anybody want to read this one?
I can read.
Please go ahead.
The use of free will. You have a free will just as there is a free will in the car. You can only go by that. Whether the brakes will work is anyone's guess. You can check them, but in any time they can give way. That is why they have special ramps every few miles on the highways for runaway trucks whose brakes have failed. It is not that every truck driver takes to the road without first having checked the brakes, but that anything can go wrong at any time. It is because when things are put together, their tendency is to fall apart. Whether it is a human system or any other system, the tendency is always the same. This tendency to fall apart applies to relationships and houses too. In fact, you often spend more time maintaining your house than living in it. Therefore, here you can only go by your free will. There is nothing else you can do. What the result will be depends on so many unknown factors that it is always a question mark. Whether what you want from a particular karma will happen as you expected is anyone's guess. Since you do not have a complete choice over the results of action, you had better recognize this limitation. Limitation here is not helplessness. Helplessness is felt only when you do not accept the limitation, and therefore it has a negative connotation, whereas acknowledging limitation is being objective. Therefore, dismissing the concept of helplessness from our minds we recognize our limitations as individuals. Because there is a limitation in knowledge and power, you cannot figure out exactly what you want, nor do you know exactly what any given action will produce. When you understand this limitation, you can respond to the results of action in terms of samatva, sameness of mind. Any result can be responded to in either of two ways: dispassionately with samatva, or like a yo-yo, elated because you got what you wanted, or suicidal because you did not. And if someone saves you from suicide, you will respond again like a yo-yo, feeling that you could not even commit suicide successfully, thereby developing yet another complex. This yo-yo response is because you think that you are the author of every result of action, when in fact you are only the author of action. Depression is created by some responsibility you have assumed, one that is absolutely illegitimate. You take what does not belong to you and then smart under it because you cannot always produce what you want. This is a fact. Then why do you not just accept the fact? All that is required is to accept it objectively, to accept that this is how the creation is. This is what you are made up of, and no one else, even a Swami, is made any differently. All human beings have the same type of limitations. According to the Shastra, even the Devas have the same limitations, albeit with some small differences between them, just as there are between human beings. Similarly, while the President of the United States definitely has more power than other people, yet he cannot appoint anyone he chooses as a judge. Once he realizes he does not have a majority, he begins to withdraw quietly, proving that even presidential power is limited. Everyone's thumb has its size. Even if it swells, it can only become so big.
Awesome. So we'll pause there and just ponder upon things. And thanks to Shaji Mahoday, we've done the loss of karma session. So I think most of this, I'm pretty sure, is clear to everybody. Just a few points, right? The law of karma versus law of destiny. These two get confused quite a bit. People think, oh, it's my prarabdha, therefore this is happening to me and there is nothing I can do. But law of karma has two different facets. One is the destiny, which is the prarabdha, but don't stop there, which is prarabdha is based on past actions. And any past action is a fait accompli, like, current results are based on past actions. Then we also have to realize that the future results are going to be based on today's actions. So therefore, Bhagavan has given us the gift with the capacity to choose our present actions, which fall under the Purushartha or self-effort. And with divine grace and Guru's blessings and regulating our power of free will, and we have to choose that dharmic path. And every time I keep saying this, every juncture in our life, and it doesn't have to be major decisions, it's day-to-day stuff, we always will get two options, one that is dharmic and the other one that is a little compromised. So training ourselves to pick the dharmic path on a regular basis, on almost in every activity that we do, is the dharma, or am I supposed to do this or not do this? And just training that intelligence or intellect to follow dharma and choosing the right action will help our karmas to be, our agami karmas, the future karmas, to be in more favorable. And along with that, we always say, shastras, parayanam, anything you're listening to Bhagavatam or any of those activities do help these karmas to be burned. And considering something to be destiny, prarabdha, or this is how it is, or some blame on planets, and all of those are passive path, taking the low road. But executing one's free will in a dharmic regulated way gives the control back to us. And we call this hard work, perseverance, grit, and you give it any name. but that's in our control on what can be done, even if it is in the most difficult of the situations. And that's what we need to focus on versus this yo-yo that Swamiji is talking about, right? It's like a pendulum. If I get the result I want, then I'm elated. If I don't get the result I want, then I become depressed. So these swings need to be or more controlled, and there should be that samatvam. It's a beautiful word. More balanced state of mind, no matter what happens. Whatever the result may be, I have given it my best, and I hoped it would happen. If it didn't happen, I have other ways to achieve it, or progress forward, and it doesn't have to be this very specific thing. And we always say, and Swamiji was also like mentioning somewhere here, that we think with our limited mind that this particular result is what's suitable for me, and we only focus on that one result. But Bhagavan has longer plans for us, and he has the best interest in our best interest in his mind. So it may be what I think is currently very flowery, but something that I will be achieving by not getting this, maybe I'll persevere and achieve something else that may give me a lot more satisfaction, and it might be a lot more suitable to me, but I have no vision of knowing that on what is going to happen in the future. So maintaining that samatvam, action items from this shloka is just do your dharma. Don't focus so much on the result that you get depressed or elated at the end of this. And if it doesn't happen according to your wish, maintain samatvam and continue to work on your activities. Does that make sense? Any thoughts before we move to the next topic?
Shiji, I was reading today that in the book it said that even Devas or Indra couldn't obviously say that, I am Indra or get me in or have more power and so on. But to extend the thought or the topic, Brahma, almost like the explanation is starting from Brahma to a virus. In all the 14 worlds, which is a part of Leela, will be under the care of or the concept of that you do not have the result power. You're only the author of the action, but not the author of the result of the action.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Brahma pipilika paryantam is what they say, right? Like from everything is under Bhagavan's control, and he doesn't control it too. And we've talked about it in the past too, that he doesn't sit and start making notes on, oh, this person did this, therefore I'm going to be angry at him and I'm going to present a result that is not suitable. So Bhagavan doesn't do that. And I always take this analogy. He's written a software and it takes care of itself. It's artificially intelligent, and it's it's automated, and all our karmas get calculated, and we say Chitragupta. It is Chitta Gupta. Our mind itself is just calculating what are the karmas that we are performing and what are the results that we should be getting, and everybody should be conscious about that. And based on those karmas, those results would be automatically calculated and the results presented back to us. Absolutely. Okay, shall we move
I just wanted to add this, and I apologize if it is outside of this topic. There are quotes which seem like they're more like a joke or fun. In here, the paragraph that I read, it said that Bhagwan creates, or all creation is by sankalpa, not that he did something on the first day or second day. But there are these, frames or pictures where it says that God created man before woman because he needed a rough draft before creating a masterpiece.
That's funny. Yeah, I think it's some other scriptures, like from different religions, have different ways on defining how the world has come into place, right? And that's when, Swamiji is talking about those from those scriptures, that it took about 6 days in which calculation on what planet, right? You just move from one time zone to a different time zone, things are different, and think about Bhagwan and his calculation of time. So, and it's a very important that you point that you bring up, Anuji. It's the sankalpa matrena. So, like, just by the very thought of I want the creation to manifest, that thought itself has brought the world into existence. And as like, so Swamiji was explaining, and Shankaracharya explains in the bhasyam, it's how we dream. Even like dream is one, put it aside, but just to think about how our mind just runs fast, and it just emotionally, it just causes the fear. Oh, that could be a snake, and then just we are scared of that, and we have to imagine things, and that with that we actually have both mental and physical reactions to it, and being scared. So if this is what humans can do in our capacity, Bhagwan doesn't need long time, over a period of time that he needs to create the universe. And over the period, there is evolution that happens, but the Big Bang and the creation of matter and energy didn't have to happen over a period of time. Okay.
So can we summarize, saying that your actions are your free will, but your results are your karmas?
Would I put it that way? Are a contribution of a lot of factors, including my karmas.
Yeah, that's right. Including your karma. Yeah, that's right. The results. That's not in your hand, but actions are in your hand.
Exactly.
So that is very important to understand, because people say, oh, it is my karma, I'm not going to do this. Then, but that's not the right way of thinking.
Correct. It's not the passive path, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
It's very active, and we are in control of what we would do. And what we would do despite, no matter what the circumstances are. And that's why we've read so many stories like the Satya Harishchandra story or Ramayana. How many times did Bhagavan choose the right path and not either be elated or be depressed, and he's continued on the path of that dharma. I'm sorry, my team continues to work. So it's just focusing on what's the right thing to do at any given point of time, and that's the only thing that is in our control.
So we can make Bhagavan to change his mind.
Definitely. Sorry, I'll just take a minute to log off.
Action is according to your karma, and how you face is your free will, isn't it? That's what I understood.
What was that, Satiji? Can you please repeat?
The action, it depends upon your karma, and how you face it. That's where your free will comes.
Correct. How you face it and how you react to certain things.
Yeah, that's where the free will comes. The action as such, there is no choice for us, right? Like whatever happens in your life, there is no choice. That's the destiny, what is happening. But how you face it, that's where the free will is coming.
Correct.
But how you face it can change what is happening.
Too. Again, that can change according to your karmas too.
But I thought Swamiji said, you are the author of the karma. So how can that be you are the author of you're the author of your actions. So how can that be?
That's the destiny, I think. That's the karmas, your actions. You are the author of your actions. But
okay.
Sorry, I missed a bit of discussion. I got distracted with that message, so I signed out of. Okay, so are we discussing that what our action is also based on what our karma could be?
Yeah, Satiji was saying, our action is our karma. I'm confused.
Free will
Our action,
can
our
change your
action is
actions.
our action is our free will.
Okay.
Bhagavan has given us that free will. And what is the result? And so even in this very sloka says that, right? You are in control of your action, not the result thereof.
Right.
And for some actions, it may take a lot more effort than other actions. Some may be very easy. And that's where I think Satiji is saying that the influence of past karmas, for example, I want to do sadhana. But I would get disturbed so many times for various reasons. For example, I wanted to, not work at this time, but now I have a message. So do I focus on what I'm currently doing, or do I get distracted, which I did get distracted for 30 seconds. So it is about that effort that we need to put in on, if I am doing sadhana and if I'm not able to wake up in the morning, it takes a lot more effort for some people to do that, and probably less effort for some people to do that. What's important is how you prioritize your sadhana and which one you are going to give importance to. Taking more rest, or do you want to wake up to do the sadhana, and how your intellect plays a role in that. That's where free will comes into picture.
Okay.
Did that make sense,
Okay.
Atiji?
Yes. Yeah. I like there's one analogy that Swami Mukundananda talks about the cards. It's like playing cards.
Mm-hmm.
When you distribute the cards, each person will get a certain number of cards, right? That is your prarabdha. That cannot be changed. And how you play with those cards, that's where the free will is. I thought that's a good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
So the number of cards you get is destined for you. There is no change you can make there. But even if it's not a good card you have, you can still play and win if you are a good player. That's what he was saying.
Correct. But which card you play is your intellect, and it's not predestined.
This time, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's within you. That you believe. Yes.
So, Sriji, can we say, sorry.
No, and at the end, whatever card you play and whatever intellect you use to play that, you have to accept that.
Correct. So whether it is you win or you lose because you played that card, you have to accept as your own effort, result of your own effort, and as Ishvara Prasada. This is what Bhagavan is giving me as a prasadam, and whatever I have played, I'm just going to offer it as an offering at his feet.
That's a samatva, right? That's a samatva.
Correct.
Thank you.
Even invariably, what is happening to you, it is all the things are happening to you because of the prarabdha. Yeah, family into which you are born, and you happen to be at the right time, at the right place for getting a job, and then you happen to get see major of the things, most of the things are not a result of your action. These are the power of the, and what is happening to you, it is your attitude to what is happening to you that decides your course of life. If you become rich, you become arrogant, then it is this one. It creates havoc. If you are rich and then you do a lot of charity, it results on you on your this one. All the time, you must always the attitude makes the man. That is what it is. That is happening. What is happening to you is God's gift. How you take the how is your attitude towards what is happening to you? That is what your choice.
Correct.
That is what.
So if I can take your example, Jayaramanji, and take it as let's imagine somebody in what family somebody is born. right? Somebody could be born as a prince. Let's take, Lord Buddha. He was born as a prince and born with riches, but that is his prarabdham. But his self-effort is to make that choice of, no, I want to seek enlightenment, and I'm going to leave all of these riches. I have the vairagya to let them go, and I'm just going to go with, whatever I'm wearing right now and just walk out. That is his free will.
Yeah.
And what he gets as a result of the free will is not in his hands. And many people might have walked out just like Buddha, but might not have attained the enlightenment, or may have attained enlightenment, but may not have spread it to as many people as Lord Buddha was able to.
Was it actually his free will, Sriji? I thought it was already destined. Because according to the horoscope, the king was told that this prince is going to be a sannyasi. So that was a predestined thing. I don't think it was his free will.
I thought even if it was destined, at some point that needs to happen, and it did not happen for 20 years. For Shankaracharya, it happened at 7.
Again, that time has to come, right? Whenever the destined time has to come, then only it will happen.
So if that is the case, think about it this way. If Buddha, let's take another prince. Why spoil Buddha's name? If we'll take, another prince, and if he was raised like any other normal prince with seeing everything, would he have the same kind of emotional feeling when Buddha saw the old man and the sick man and the corpse, etc.? It would not have been the same kind of emotion, right?
Right.
How many of these can be predestined for us?
Yeah, because he was predestined, and that's why the king tried to keep him away from all the sorrows and everything in the life. And still, because it was a destined one, in spite of all the things that the king did, he did want to go out and see the kingdom, and that's when he changed his mind, right? He wanted to become the
Yeah, if he was raised by just going out and being able to see everything and enjoy everything, maybe it would have been a little different. So let's take another example. For example, let's assume a child born in a Brahmana family. Everybody is doing Veda Parayanams, Homams, and the whole traditional Orthodox family. But how many of those kids are we seeing these days that don't gather that into themselves, and they are completely on a different path, and sometimes on the wrong path?
right? That's true.
So because I shouldn't have taken Buddha's name, just somebody. And if you notice, in the past, many kids just followed their traditional whatever their family traditions are, and now we are seeing a lot more kids just deviating from the path.
And that due to their free will, you're saying?
I'm saying that is free will, because if it was predestined, then it wouldn't be very different from children from some 3-4 centuries ago to children from these days. It's people making their choices based on the influences that they're seeing and what appeals to them, and they're choosing their path. And whether they're choosing a dharmic path or non-dharmic path, if there is even an understanding of that, we have no idea.
Right.
They were born into the same with the same family. They received a similar education, they received similar gifts, and then in spite of that, Arjuna's attitude to life was different, and the Duryodhana's attitude was different. That's why he got he got the fate he deserved.
Correct.
Yeah. Prarabdha, because of his rough attitude, and then whatever this one, aggrandizement, because of that, that killed him as a human being.
Correct. And each of them chose different paths.
Yeah.
Right? Like, say Karna chose to be loyal, and
Yeah.
Duryodhana chose ego and pride over the truth. And the Yudhishthira chose to be on the path of truth. And Arjuna chose the dedication and at the feet of Lord. So it is how their different gunas and how they play a role in making those choices, and that makes us all different.
Krishna gave the gave the teaching to Arjuna, Duryodhana first, but he said nothing doing. What you are talking about is it is not my way.
Mm.
At the same time, the same thing he told Arjuna, then he accepted it and then surrendered it before him. That is why he could prosper in life.
Correct.
Life. And then he was left in the dungeon.
So Swamiji gives one more example, Swami Paramarthananda ji. So he says, let's assume we're, and he's conducting classes in Chennai, Mylapore. And he says, in order for this class to go on, for a few things have to happen. One, I have to arrive to be able to teach the class. And only I arrive doesn't really make a difference if you guys don't arrive. So all the students also have to arrive, only then there is a class. Otherwise, there is no class that day. If all of this happens, but the power goes out and there is no electricity, even then the class cannot happen. So what I do, because the class may not happen, the power may be off, or the students may not arrive, based on that, I am not going to not arrive. So that my choice, and this is in Swamiji's words, quotes, my choice is, my contribution to all of this is that making that right choice, that I have to go to the class. This is the right time. This is the time, therefore I have to go. What happens afterwards, whether class happens or not, is not in my control. But what I contribute is in my control.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that is right. That our free will gives us the actions that we want to do.
Correct.
The results can be given to the God, right? It's the karma that takes care of the results.
Correct. So there are so many different contributing factors apart from our own karma phalas. And as even Swamiji was saying, it's so difficult for anybody to understand what is this whole karma philosophy, and that's why I actually wanted Shaji Mahoday to hold that lecture. It is not easy to determine or know. And I'm not so much into astrology. I'm a bit into Vedic astronomy, but not so much into astrology in that sense. But I did have I've heard some predictions that are wow, that's did not even assume that would happen. Just to give you, yeah. So I don't know how that plays into the whole karma, so I'm not able to connect those two, especially topic that I am not aware of. But that free will, and in our personal lives, we can see, yeah, if I want to do my sadhana today, it is my choice whether I will wake up or I won't wake up. And it depends on how intensely I want to do that sadhana, that will wake me up at the time that I want to wake up. Make sense?
So usage of our intellect in that given situation is what you're saying, right, Sriji?
Correct.
Okay.
So there is one more example. Maybe this is not related totally to karma philosophy, but the use of intellect. This is from Sandepani, from Chinmaya Mission. So they say there is a person, and that person is given a laddu by somebody in a very disobedient way. So the first thing that comes to mind, like, because sense organs react and say, wow, that's just a beautiful looking laddu, I want to taste it. But mind says, no, that person was not very respectful. My ego is hurt. I don't want to eat it. And then the next stage is of thinking, and they explain it, even if he gave it disrespectfully, and even if the sweet looks amazing, I am diabetic and I'm not supposed to eat it. The next level of thinking is whether I'm diabetic or not, whether they give it with respect or not, whether it is a beautiful looking sweet, like, very yummy looking sweet or not. I am not supposed to eat it because this is not the time to eat. I just had my lunch and I'm going to wait until my dinner. That is the path of this is a regulated conscious life. Versus the intellect says, oh, you're a diabetic, don't eat that. And the mind says, like, immediately, that ego that comes into picture and says, oh, the sweet looks yummy, but that was disrespectful, so let's not eat that. So they say it's like different layers of our intelligence and how it plays tricks on us, and our reactions or our actions are based on which level is at work at any given point of time. And the way they explain it is, the more you're conscious of your intellect and your intellect is in control, the better choices you'd be making, therefore making your future karmas favorable to you. Did that analogy make sense?
Yes, Shriji.
That's a good one, Shriji. Shriji, but one question about, Ramayana. If you take the example of Ramayana, and Sita was asked to stay within the line by Lakshmana, and then, she takes the decision, right? It's her intellect that is telling her to go out of the line when Ravana comes, right? That is a destined thing that is to be happening. Even though her intellect is deciding, because Rama took the avatar to kill Ravana, so that's a destined thing. So even though the intellect is deciding, she is going out beyond the line, right? And then getting into trouble. And then that's when she's being taken away by Ravana. So that's my question.
I don't know if I have a lot of expertise in this, but the way I would see is, she's the Parashakti. She knows what needs to happen. I guess, like, that would be her choice, right?
Right. Yeah. So like that whatever we think that our intellect is doing is also destined to be happening. How do we know whether that's the case, or are we making our own choices really? I really don't know whether which one is the right.
So the only thing we can do in those circumstances is to keep continuing to make the right choices.
Right.
Instead of waiting for something to happen. So we are saying, okay, this is, and it is not based on expectation of a result. That's what I think Bhagavan is trying to convey. Is and Swamiji also says, right now, you start with, oh, I want this result, therefore I'm going to do these 3 actions. And he jokes about it, like, what is the shortest, the cheapest, and how quickly can I get there, is what we decide, and based on that we choose our actions. But he says, sure, you are hopeful of a result, but is this the right path? Is this the right result? Just making those intelligent choices and doing the right set of actions. If only we all chose the right things to do and not worry about the result. Let's put it that way. If everybody in the world over the last so many millennia followed dharma as explained by Bhagavad Gita or by Bhagavan in Gita, would there be these many wars? And would there be these many differences among people? And if we think, oh, these are predestined, therefore, what can we do about it? Versus what is my contribution to the overall equation, the circle of life? And we are only playing our role because we cannot be in control of everybody else's role.
But Shriji, if you're talking about everybody else's roles, then sometimes don't we do certain karma to exhaust other people's karmas too?
And how would we do that?
Well, let's say somebody, I mean, I don't know if this is predetermined or not, but let's say somebody, if we are mean to somebody and that person is nice to us in return, they're probably exhausting some of the, like, I'm just giving a very simple example. It can be something worse, but they are kind of exhausting their karma, and to help them exhaust the karma, we have to do certain things.
To what I know, everybody except the Pitrakaryas, right? I'm not going to go into that topic. But generally speaking, everybody is responsible for their own karma and their own results. So if somebody was, like, if I'm mean to someone and they're being nice to me, their punya karmas have probably go up and my bad karmas go up. And how I exhaust, and exhaustion, I think, gets used a lot in terms of karmas, but what I hear and what I read from Shankara Bhasyam, he says there is no way you can negate. So I have 100 good karmas and I have 100 bad karmas, doesn't mean it's zero. You have to get the result of your 100 good karmas and you have to endure the result of the 100 bad karmas. That's how it works. So what I am going to be able to do is only increase my good karmas. So over a period of a lifetime, I'm going to have most of my scenarios favorably compared to some bad karmas. So in between, there are some issues here and there, but overall, in the grand scheme of things, it all looks good. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but the other thing that was in my mind was, let's say I have a child who is into drugs, or who is not a good person, and he comes in my life to test me, and not only testing, but to change my karmas. Does that ever happen?
I think it again comes back to that free will, isn't it? Like, continuing to be on the right path on our end. So, what can we do in those kind of situations? If somebody chose that is the path that they want to go in, what is our choice? Either support them in their rehabilitation or probably stay away, or like what can we do if it is beyond the control? Then just making sure that I don't know how to answer the question, but it is, I don't think they can influence the karmas. It is just, of course, our karmas also at play if in a situation like that. But what is our free will and what is our effort in continuing to do the right thing?
Sridevi ji, two incidents which I heard comes to my mind.
Please go ahead.
And both are related to this. The first one was the Paramacharya from the Sringeri Madam. When he was having a discourse, he was mentioning about the 4 different types of karmas, right? The Nitya karma, Naimitya karma, Kame karma, and Nishiddha karma.
Yeah.
He was saying about a story about a person who said, "Oh, I don't want to be born again, so I'm not going to do any kamya karma. I'm not going to do any Nishiddha karma. All I'm going to do is Nitya karma and Naimitya karma." And this particular person did only Nitya karma and Naimitya karma, all the obligatory duties to the core, did very well. And when he died, he was born again. Then he was asking the Lord, "Oh Lord, why did you do this to me? I didn't do any kamya karma, I didn't do any Nishiddha karma, I did everything as you prescribed." And it's a joke where the Sringeri Paramacharya says, just because you did so many good karmas, you have a lot of good positive bank balance, so you have to be born again.
Correct.
So that answers one part of the question. And the second part, where they were talking about actions and the free will, right? Swami Chinmayananda's lecture comes to my mind, because Swami Chinmayananda, he often has a very nice wording. He says, action is a must. Human beings need to act to be alive.
Correct.
And he often says that in his various courses. And if you are subscribing to that Gita 365, I think it comes up in somewhere between 50 to 60 as well, this particular wording. He says, action is a must. Human beings need to act to be alive. And Swami Chinmayananda talks about 3 different actions as well. How you react: reaction, inaction, and unaction.
Correct.
And action, some people equate that to a little bit of rajasic tendency, where you have, dynamic and conscious action, where you react to reach a specific goal. These are all the typical actions human beings do to fulfill a desire. And there are some people with a lot of tamasic gunas, where tamasic gunas overweigh the rajasic and sattvic. They are more into inertia, inactivity. So Swami Chinmayananda classifies them as inaction.
Inaction, yeah.
And when it comes to unaction, Swami Chinmayananda says this is the most preferred among these 3. This is much more little bit of sattvic type, because the attitude of the people following it, or the seekers, they are on a path of a renunciation and knowledge. They are the earners or the learners of the Atmanyanam. And these people try to go on a path where they're giving more emphasis to prasada buddhi, which gives you prasannata, and the Ishvara Arpana buddhi, which gives you samatvam. So when you try to go that route, right, and he talks about the body, the mind, and the intellect, the BMI chart, and he says that from the intellect, the vasanas comes, and a little bit of ideas comes to you, and the mind starts getting these kind of thoughts and desires, and everything gets manifested in the body as actions. So this whole thing tries to slowly deviate from us, so that it allows the intellect to be free from ideas, the mind free from expectations, and therefore the body free from sensual demands and all the stuff. So we get into a much more an action mode, where you do everything on behalf of a Sthita Prajna mode. And he concludes one of his lectures saying, moksha is not a freedom from action, but it is a freedom in action.
Correct.
So how you act is based on it. And free will becomes a major catalyst or a direct constituent in how we act. And this is very similar to what Satiji told about Mukunda Ananda, right? You're given with a set of cards. You can play it anywhere you want. If you're smart enough to play it good, you win. If you screw up, you lose. This is exactly what life is as well. You need to act, because action is a must. But how you act is where the whole game depends.
Exactly. And using that intelligence when you're playing that games. Very, very well said,
Absolutely right.
Mahoday. Yeah. So that actually brings me to I think it's the 5th shloka of chapter 3, where Bhagavan says, it is, you cannot not perform an action. There is nothing called as no action, because, and he says, there is nothing called renouncing the action, because you still have to breathe, you still have to eat your food, and all of those are considered actions. What you can choose is how much you eat, and when do you eat, and what you eat. Those are all in your control, and making those right choices. And what's right and just know it doesn't have to, you don't need to read a book to understand what's right, because it's the conscience that keeps telling you that this is the right action. And removing all of those filters like the pride, the ego, and everything else, and listening to that pure conscience from inside, the voice that tells us, in this case, this is the right thing to do, and following that conscience. Thank you for sharing that, Mahoday. Very well said.
Thanks, Srideviji.
So, Sri Deviji, the process is so very important. The process is what really defines whether it is righteousness or not done rightly.
Correct.
And that changes, that can change. That can change the predestined. Is that right? Am I right in saying that if I exercise my free will, to always do the right things, even if I'm losing money or whatever, I'm going to be always doing right things. So that is my free will, and what I get in the end, maybe I have to just accept it from God, saying that that is what it is. That's what I'm happy with, and I'm accepting that what God gave me. However, that result may have been different had I not acted properly.
Correct. So you can take many examples in the Puranas, like Markandeya. I'm sorry, I'm so bad in Puranas. I would remember this name like 2 minutes later. The lady who brought her back, the Pativrata who brought her husband back from
Savitri, right?
Savitri.
Savitri and Satyavama.
Yeah. So we have heard these stories. There is, okay, predestined, and according to the horoscope, this is what's supposed to happen. But with that effort, that self-effort and that free will, and continuing to be conscious of Bhagavan, right? Like everything is done for as an arpana to Bhagavan. They were able to change that destination, so the destiny, and where they were headed. And what we need to just focus on is continuing to do the right action, which is like, if you go back to this particular sloka, there are 4 steps that Bhagavan gives, right? That's the process that you're talking about. Sorry.
Yes. Whatever karma, right? That process of how we are doing it, how we are reacting. But we talked about the reactions, right? That reaction has to be dharmic.
Correct. Karmanyeva adhikaraha te. Only on your karma do you have any control. Ma phaleshu kadachana. Never on the result. Ma karma phalahetuhu bhuhu. Don't be attached to any result or be expecting of a result. Mate sangostva karmani. So don't be attached to inaction. So he's also saying, don't stop doing any action. Don't stop doing action. Don't be attached to the result. What you can do is your control is on your particular action, and let the result come naturally.
Sriji, we have to have many sessions on just this topic.
And it will continue.
My God. Yeah, I think I'm getting a lot of doubts, springs. I tend to agree, and again, I try to go back and things like that. All the kind of, movements are there in my mind.
And thankfully, actually, Arjuna does a very good job on behalf of all of us to ask those questions. So over the next, I think, 2.5 chapters, we will continue talking about Karma Yoga. And
wow.
So till at least end of 4th chapter, and even into the 5th chapter, we will go into a lot of Karma Yoga and how Karma Yoga becomes Karma Sannyasa Yoga on a path to moksha. So I think there's a lot more, even like Arjuna gets confused, right? Like, I don't know if he is really confused or he's asking on our behalf.
Sometimes I think, it is like egg and chicken, which came first. And that's, our actions give us more karma, right? And that has to be put into what our actions are going to be in the future. And as long as we do, I think the actions as thinking it to be the dharmic, I think that will take us to a final result that could be a good one. You know,
Correct.
that's what I think. But it may not be immediate. That we may not, because we don't have anything to do with the result. You know, that is karma. That the result happens to be, you know, what it could be. But finally, it could be the good karmas will make a lot of difference in our life.
And even emotionally, when we are not attached to it and we just do the right thing,
yes,
the possibility of the result manifesting itself is much higher, because
yes.
you're not worried about, and you're not and have those negative thoughts of what if it did not happen, right? You're just focusing on what you need to do. So the kind of
There is a very, very nice story, Sri Deviji, I've heard in Chinmaya Mission. When you fall down, and who lifts you up, and with whom do you develop company, makes or breaks your life. And in respect to that, the story I heard in Chinmaya Mission is, look at Karna, he fell down. Duryodhana ran up to him. He lifted him up. He became his best friend. Then he was more into a dharmic side. And look at Arjuna in the middle of the battlefield. You know, his Gandiva, he couldn't even hold his Gandiva. He fell down. And Lord Krishna picked him up. And he was on his side. And he was on the dharmic side. So it all depends who lifts you up when you drop down, and with whom you have keep company. So this story I heard in the Bali Vikas class in Chinmaya Mission, and you know it resonated a little bit on the same dharmic and adharmic, and with whom you keep the company and how you lead your life.
And we could argue that, you know, it could be predestined based on our previous karmas on who would be available to you in front of you.
Correct.
And for that, I think what Shankaracharya continues to say is, who is in front of you at that moment depends on what you have been doing and how much effort you put into the right things. That could change.
Exactly.
When the dharmic decisions that you take depends upon your samskara, right?
Your gunas and samskaras, yes.
So that depends upon your vasanas and your karmas that you have done. If you are already a dharmic person, then it's easy for you to take a dharmic decision. But if you're not a dharmic, if you go and talk to a drug addict or a murderer or a robber, do you think they will follow the dharmic?
So if we can take Valmiki story, and with just, you know, one moment, he changed from being a dacoit to Maharshi.
Yeah.
So things could happen.
But, you know, like I said, all these drug addicts and all, I don't know if they will change into dharmic ways if you tell them that's the right thing to do. Because their samskara is not there. Their samskara is not there to be in the right path. So they will still follow the wrong path.
And in the recent past, we've seen some of these examples, or not that I was born or have seen that specifically, but I've just heard a lot of these stories. So when we think about Prabhupada, and when he brought Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita to the United States, and this whole hippie category, right? A lot of them into marijuana and things like that. He was able to just change them to Krishna consciousness. It's the right person being available, to Shajiji's point, that who comes to pick you up.
That's true. Yeah, the right person should come at that.
And how much of a lending hand can we provide if somebody was in that case? Like, you know, what is our duty? Some key takeaways are, like, you know, how and with Swami Paramarthananda, there were like lots of practical approaches he used to teach us, or he continues to teach. So keep track of the major decisions you make in a day or in a week, and how often ever you can just track and count on, like, just categorize them into these many were based on dharma, and I actually had to, like, ponder upon it, and I had to make that decision, even if it was for 30 seconds. I just had to hold myself not to take path A, but I took path B because that's the right thing to do. And how many were based on, like, ego, instinct, impulse, I just did it. It could be like, how we approach speaking to people. It could be whatever, like, how we approach, like, approach our work, etc. So he says, file the frequency, intensity, and recency of your actions, and how frequently, how intensely, and how recently have you been doing anything that is not within the dharmic grid. And he says, keeping tabs on things like this and just monitoring yourself, catching yourself doing differently, you'd be able to, like, just build that nature automatically. You'll just start becoming more aware of it and being, like, a lot more conscious when you're making those choices. And it is not easy. Dharma is not an easy path.
That is very true.
Okay, we'll continue to study. There's a lot more, and none of us are experts in karma anyway. So we will kind of see how this goes, and, like, we'll continue to.
Yeah,
It's
the more we learn, more doubts are coming.
Exactly, right? It's like the most complicated
Yes.
thing to understand. But I can see, like, why only Bhagavan knows knows what happens.
That's only he knows the right answer.
Shriji, we are all predestined to discuss this. How about that? For example, the books are everywhere, Gita books, okay? We've all come from different places, and we're exposed to different things. But finally, we're sitting here on a Friday evening without dancing and drinking, discussing on these things. So we are destined to be together.
And to which I will say, I think in the group, there are more than 100. I'm just looking at the number of participants. About 100 or so participants. And on this call, there are 22. So about 22% have made the self-effort.
Exactly. Yeah.
That free will.
Yeah, free will. Now
That's
this is free will. Yeah, I was just wanting to tell that. Yeah. This is free will.
Yes, that's right. A free will to.
That is a good example.
Yeah. I can easily say, you know what, I'm not going to attend this class. So today I don't want. I like that the example you gave about waking up, because